Ethan, no one wants to hear that. You're broke. Your opinion doesn't matter. Years later, when they found out I was a millionaire, they begged for my help. Ethan, we're family. I smirked, pulled out contracts, and said, "Oh, now I matter?" Read the fine print. Their faces went white. Hey, Reddit. My name's Ethan, and I never thought I'd be posting here. But after everything that happened, I need some advice, or maybe I just need to vent. My whole life, my family treated me like background noise. Not in a dramatic, we locked you in a basement way, but in the you don't matter way. Decisions were made without me. Conversations moved on like I never spoke. I wasn't important. My older brother Nick was the leader, the one everyone listened to. If he had an idea, it was automatically the best one. My younger sister Ashley was the princess, the golden child who got everything she wanted without asking twice. And me? I was just there. It wasn't like I never tried to speak up. I did. But every time I did, I was either ignored, laughed at, or dismissed like a child. One time, when I was around 10, I spent weeks making a scrapbook of our best family moments. I worked on it every night, picking out photos, adding little notes, trying to make it perfect. On Christmas morning, I gave it to my parents with the biggest smile on my face. Mom barely flipped through it before moving on to the next gift. Dad didn't even pretend to care. Meanwhile, Nick gave him a used golf club he found at a garage sale, and Dad acted like he had just been handed an artifact from heaven. I should have learned my place back then. The moment it clicked. Fast forward to 3 years ago. Every year, my family held a big annual gathering at an expensive country club. It was the same thing every time, overpriced food, watered-down drinks, and a boring atmosphere where people stood around talking about work. It felt more like a corporate event than a celebration. So I thought, hey, why don't I suggest something different this year? We were all sitting in the living room. Mom had her usual glass of wine. Dad was scrolling through his phone, half listening. Nick was stretched out on the couch like he owned the place, and Ashley was doing her nails. I cleared my throat. Hey, what if we switch things up this year? Nick didn't even look up. Switch what up? The party, I said. Instead of the country club, what if we rented a lake house? Something more relaxed. Barbecue, good food, actual fun. Silence. Then Ashley snorted. Oh my God, she said, shaking her head. Ethan, do you have any idea how expensive that would be? It's actually cheaper than the country club. Nick cut me off with a laugh. Dude, if you want to plan something, you gotta be willing to pay for it. Mom swirled her wine. Sweetheart, it's nice that you have ideas, but these things aren't as simple as you think. Dad didn't even look at me. You want to change things? Pay for it. Otherwise, leave it to the grown-ups. And just like that, I got the message. Ethan, enough. Your voice doesn't count. I bit my tongue, nodded, let them talk about their party as if I wasn't even there. But in that moment, a thought settled in my mind. All right, one day, I'll be able to pay for everything myself. Let's see what you say then. I just didn't know that when that day came, they wouldn't just want my opinion. They'd want my money. Update 2. Hey, Reddit. Ethan here again. So, after that little incident where my family made it clear that my opinions only mattered if I was paying, I learned to keep my mouth shut. I stopped trying to contribute to family discussions. I showed up to events, smiled when necessary, and faded into the background. They didn't notice. But while they were too busy treating me like an afterthought, I was working. How I got rich. It started with crypto. Back in 2018, when Bitcoin crashed, everyone was panicking. My brother Nick even made fun of people who had invested. Crypto brothers are getting wrecked, he'd laugh, scrolling through Twitter. But I was watching, learning, and, most importantly, buying. Ethereum, Solana, some meme coins. People thought I was crazy, but I did my research. I didn't throw my life savings in, but I took calculated risks. And then I held. By 2021, my portfolio had exploded. I cashed out at the right times, reinvested in startups, and played the long game. No flashy spending. No sudden lifestyle changes. Just smart moves. I didn't tell my family. Why would I? They had never cared about what I was doing before. And I thought I could keep it that way. How they found out. I probably would have kept it a secret forever if not for Nick's foolish friend, Ryan. I was at a coffee shop, minding my own business, when I ran into him. We hadn't talked in years, but he recognized me. Ethan, he said, eyes wide. Oh well, man, how's it going? We chatted for a bit, and he asked what I was up to. I gave him a vague answer, but he kept pressing. Eventually, I let it slip that I'd done well with crypto. His eyes nearly popped out of his skull. Dude, you were in early, weren't you? I shrugged. Something like that. I should have known he wouldn't keep it to himself. A week later, I got a text from Ashley. Ashley, WTF, Ethan? I frowned. Me. What? Ashley, are you actually loaded? Ryan said you made bank in crypto. I sighed. Here we go. I ignored the message, but then Nick called. Dude, he said the moment I picked up. How much did you make? I sighed. Enough. Like, enough to buy a house? A Tesla. Nick. Okay. He laughed. Look, I'm just saying, you could have told us. Family and all. Right. Family and all. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. A few days later, Mom invited me over for dinner. That should have been my first red flag. I showed up, and the vibe was weird. They were too nice. Mom kept refilling my plate. Dad actually looked at me when I spoke. And Ashley wasn't glued to her phone. Halfway through dinner, Nick cleared his throat. So, listen, he said, smiling in a way that made my stomach turn. We were thinking, maybe it's time to take the family party to the next level. I put down my fork. Oh. Mom nodded eagerly. Something really special this year. Maybe a destination event. A fancy resort, or even a private yacht for the weekend. Ashley grinned. And since someone is apparently a crypto millionaire, I leaned back in my chair. There it was. Wait, I said. Are you guys expecting me to pay for this? Nick laughed. Come on, dude. It's not like you can't afford it. Mom waved a hand. We're family, Ethan. It's just a gesture. Dad finally spoke. I mean, you wanted to have a say in these things, right? I stared at them. The exact same words they threw at me years ago. I exhaled slowly, then smiled. You know what? You're right. Nick's eyes lit up. Really? Yeah, I said. I'll take care of everything. Ashley clapped her hands. OMG, this is gonna be amazing. I pulled out my phone. Booked the most expensive venue I could find. Sent them the details. There you go, I said, sliding my phone across the table. Enjoy your fancy celebration. Their smiles widened as they looked at the screen. They had no idea what was coming. Update 3. Hey, Reddit. Ethan here again. So, after my family found out about my crypto success, they suddenly became very interested in me. The same people who ignored my opinions for years were now treating me like the most important person in the room. And all it took was money. They wanted me to fund a lavish family celebration, something they never would have even considered if they thought I was broke. I agreed, because I had a plan. I wasn't just going to let them use me. I was going to see exactly how far they'd go. The party that changed everything. I went all out. I booked a luxury estate with private chefs, top-tier catering, and an open bar. I hired live entertainment, decked the place out with expensive decor, and even paid for private transportation to bring everyone there. It cost an obscene amount of money, but I didn't care, because this wasn't about making them happy. This was a test, and they failed spectacularly. The complaints started immediately. The night of the party, I showed up a little late on purpose. I wanted to walk in and see their reactions before they noticed me. What I saw: Mom complaining that the food wasn't seasoned enough. Ashley holding up a glass of champagne, saying, Ugh, is this seriously not Dom Perignon? Nick was talking to Dad, shaking his head. He really went with this band? Could have hired someone better. I stood there, listening to them pick apart everything I had paid for. Nothing was good enough. Nothing was appreciated. And they had no idea I was standing right behind them. I cleared my throat. Having a good time? They all turned, startled. Then, like flipping a switch, the fake smiles came out. Ethan, oh my God, this is amazing. Ashley squealed, suddenly loving the champagne she had just insulted. Yeah, man, great job, Nick added, patting me on the back like we were best friends. Mom nodded approvingly. See? When you put your mind to something, you really deliver. Dad just grunted, not bad, as if I had just assembled an IKEA table instead of dropping tens of thousands of dollars on this. I smiled. They thought I was done with my generosity. They had no idea what was coming next. Since you're so rich, you can help us out, right? As the night went on, the real reason they were being nice to me started to show. Nick pulled me aside first. Hey, so. I was thinking, he started, swirling his drink. You know, now that you're doing so well, maybe you could spot me a little loan? I kept my face neutral. A loan? Yeah, man, just a little something to help me out. I was thinking, like, 20, 30 grand? Nothing crazy. Nothing crazy. Before I could even respond, Ashley swooped in. Oh my God, yes. Ethan, I need one too. I found the perfect apartment in downtown LA, but the deposit is insane. You could totally help me out, right? I stared at them. Neither of them looked remotely ashamed. They were lining up like I was an ATM. And then came the final straw. Mom and Dad approached me, looking serious. Ethan, sweetheart, Mom started. You know your father and I have always worked so hard to provide for you kids. Dad nodded, arms crossed. But things are getting tougher, she continued. Retirement isn't as easy as we thought, and honestly, we were hoping you'd help out. Dad finally spoke. You're successful now, Ethan. It's time to step up. Take care of your family. Step up. Like I hadn't been stepping up my entire life, just in ways they never noticed. I looked around at them. These people who had dismissed me, ignored me, laughed at me when I was broke, and now they were treating me like I owed them something. And that's when I made my decision. I smiled. Of course, I said. I'd love to help. Time to play my own game. I gave them everything they asked for. Nick got his $30,000. Ashley got her luxury apartment deposit. Mom and Dad got a retirement fund contribution that covered their mortgage for a year. They were thrilled. They thought they had won. But what they didn't know, I had contracts. Legally binding loan agreements. Signed. Sealed. Witnessed by my lawyer. Because if they were going to treat me like a bank, then I was going to act like one. They thought they could take my money and never pay me back. They were wrong. New update, guys. Hey, Reddit. Ethan here again. So let's recap. My family used to treat me like an afterthought. The only time my opinion mattered was when I was paying for something. When they found out I was rich, they suddenly became so loving and supportive. They asked for loans, big ones. I gave them exactly what they wanted. But what they didn't know was that I made them sign legally binding loan agreements. Now, it was time for them to learn that I wasn't their personal ATM. The first missed payment. Nick was the first to forget. The first payment on his $30,000 loan was due at the beginning of the month. I waited a few days, thinking maybe he'd send it late. Nothing. So, I sent him a text. Hey, just a reminder, your first loan payment was due on the 1st. Let me know when you send it. He took 3 days to respond. Nick, oh, yeah, man, things are a little tight this month. You know how it is. I'll get you next month. I stared at the message. Next month? I sent back a single reply. Read the contract. Within 5 minutes, he called me. You're seriously gonna make me follow some stupid contract? He snapped. Yes, I said. That's how loans work. He started ranting about how family doesn't do this to each other, and how it's just money. You have so much of it, he said. Why does this even matter to you? I laughed. If it's just money, then why don't you have it? Silence. You have 2 choices, Nick, I said. Pay what you owe, or deal with the legal consequences. He hung up. Ashley pretends not to know. Ashley's payment was due a week later. Unlike Nick, she didn't even try to make an excuse. She just ignored me. No response to texts. Calls went straight to voicemail. So, I sent an email. Then a formal letter. Then, when she still didn't respond, I had my lawyer send her an official notice of default. She called me that night, screaming, "Are you seriously taking this legal? Over family. You signed a contract," I said. "You agreed to pay." She kept yelling, crying about how she wasn't expecting to actually pay it back and how she thought it was just something I did because I was rich. So, you lied, I said. Good to know. She hung up. And the next day, she magically found the money to make her first payment. Mom and Dad tried to guilt me. But the real drama started when Mom and Dad got their notice. They didn't even try to talk to me directly. Instead, they called a family meeting. I showed up at their house, expecting a calm discussion. Instead, I walked into a full-on intervention-style ambush. Nick and Ashley were already there, sitting on the couch with their arms crossed. Mom stood in the kitchen, dramatically stirring her tea, while Dad sat at the table, glaring at me. The moment I walked in, Mom sighed. "Ethan, sit down." I didn't. "We need to talk about these ridiculous contracts," Dad said. "They're not ridiculous," I said. "They're legal agreements. You all signed them." Mom set her cup down with a loud clink. "We are family, Ethan. Family doesn't do this to each other." I leaned against the doorway. "Funny. Family also doesn't ignore you for years until they find out you're rich." Ashley scoffed. "You're being so dramatic." I smiled. "No, You know what's dramatic? A full-on family meeting because you guys don't want to pay back money you asked for. Mom's voice turned sharp. You have so much, Ethan. Why are you acting like this? Why are you punishing us? I almost laughed. I'm not punishing anyone, I said. I gave you exactly what you asked for. If you can't pay, then that's on you. Dad clenched his jaw. You're turning your back on this family. No, I said. I'm finally treating you the way you've treated me my whole life. Silence. And then Nick, in true Nick fashion, decided to make things worse. This is why no one ever respected you, he muttered. I turned to him. Excuse me. You've always been petty, he said. That's why you were never included in family decisions. You're just proving why we never took you seriously. I stared at him for a long moment. Then I nodded. Okay, I said. Got it. I pulled out my phone. Typed a quick message. Sent it. A second later, all of their phones buzzed. Ashley looked down at hers first. Her face drained of color. You didn't. Nick checked his next. Dude. No. You're insane. Mom grabbed her phone and let out a gasp. Ethan, how could you? Because what I had just sent them was a final demand for payment. And if they didn't pay by the deadline, I would take them to court. The fallout. They tried everything. Guilt trips. Manipulation. Even getting extended family to call me and beg me to reconsider. I didn't budge. And one by one, they paid. Nick was first. Begrudgingly. He paid half up front, then the rest over a few months. Ashley bitched and whined the whole time but still made her payments. Mom and Dad? They fought the hardest. But in the end, they weren't willing to have their financial mess exposed in court. So they paid. Every last cent. And after the final payment cleared, I blocked them all. The aftermath. It's been months now. I haven't spoken to any of them since. Occasionally, I get texts from random numbers, cousins, distant relatives, saying things like family is forever and they miss you. I ignore them. Because the truth is, they never miss me. They miss my money. And now that they don't have access to it, they have no use for me. And that's fine. Because I have no use for them either. Final update. Hey, Reddit. Ethan here one last time. It's been a few months since I cut my family off. After they paid back every cent they owed me, I blocked them. No more calls, no more texts, no more guilt trips. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. The final attempts. At first, they tried to act like nothing had changed. Ashley sent me a text a week after her last payment. Ashley, okay, so are we good now? Can we all move on? Me. Move on from what? You paying back the money you borrowed? That's not some kind of grand gesture. That's just being an adult. She left me on read. Then Nick tried. Nick, dude, I don't get why you're being so harsh about all this. We're family. I didn't even bother replying. Then came Mom and Dad's final guilt trip. Mom left a long voicemail. Ethan, sweetheart, I don't know why you're doing this to us. We're your parents. We love you. You need to let go of this anger and come home. Dad added at the end, you're being unreasonable. Call your mother. I listened to the message once. Then I deleted it. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just done. What I gained by losing them. When I first cut them off, I thought I'd feel empty. I mean, they were my family. Even if they treated me like garbage for years, they were still the only family I had ever known. But the longer I stayed away, the lighter I felt. No more getting dragged into obligations I never agreed to. No more being the wallet they could drain. No more walking into a room and feeling like I didn't belong. Instead, I started focusing on my own life. I traveled. I reconnected with old friends. I invested in things that actually made me happy. And most importantly, I stopped waiting for my family's approval. Because, at the end of the day, they never truly valued me. They valued what I could give them. And now that they had nothing left to take, they had no use for me. And I was perfectly okay with that. The last laugh. Last week, I heard from a mutual friend that Ashley had to move out of her fancy LA apartment because she couldn't afford the rent. Nick lost his car because he fell behind on payments. And my parents? They were still complaining to anyone who would listen about how Ethan abandoned his family. I didn't feel bad. Not even a little. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't the loser in their story. I was the one who walked away and never looked back.